The turn of the 20th century brought sweeping changes across the world, and one of those inventions would permanently change the world of firearm design. The 1911 is a legendary firearm that changed the design and manufacturing of pistols and cemented a legendary legacy along with it. This one gun sent such big shockwaves throughout the industry that it became the gold standard for any pistol to come out afterwards all the way into the modern day. Shortly after the turn of the 20th century, America was looking into replacing the standard sidearm for the military after the Philippine-American War turned into the Moro Rebellion. At the time, America's armed forces were using the Colt M1912, or a variant of it. It was a revolver chambered in .38 long Colt that was considered to be underpowered against the Moro people, as they were using a mix of various narcotics to power through the gunfire. Meaning, America learned the hard way that proto-crackheads are stronger than .38 long Colt. So the Moro Rebellion starts, and America realizes that we need some upgrades, so America starts the Thompson-Lagarde test to figure out what caliber this new sidearm is going to be in. So in 1904, Thompson and Lagarde went to the Nielsen Morris Company Union stockyards in Chicago, and across 2 days shot anywhere from 13 to 16 live cattle, potentially 2 horses, and assumed 11 human cadavers in what can only be described as the most scientific testing America has ever seen. On day 1, 8 of the cattle were shot, 7 of them in the lungs, and the last one in the intestines, and if the animal took too long to die, it was put down by a hammer blow to the head. On day 2, they decided to change the testing by shooting the animal rapidly until it fell or 10 shots had been fired. At some point during these tests, human cadavers were shot at distances of 3 yards, 37.5 yards, and 75 yards as a ballistic pendulum to determine how much power was behind each round by seeing how far it would swing. And I couldn't find anything about those 2 previously mentioned horses. After all of that, Thompson came to the conclusion that the board was of the opinion that a bullet which will have the shock effect and stopping effect at short ranges necessary for a military pistol or revolver should have a caliber not less than .45. All of that was just to figure out what caliber was going to be used. We still need the gun. So in 1906, the pistol trials were held with 6 companies submitting designs for the initial trials. 3 of them were eliminated early on, leaving Savage Arms, Colt, and
Deutsche Waffen- und Munitionsfabriken.
And all 3 would have issues that needed correction, with Colt and Savage submitting new designs and DWM withdrawing from the trials. Now, with only 2 designs left from 1907 onwards, Colt and Savage would continue to improve their designs after each round of testing up to 1910, when both pistols would be fired over 6,000 times over the course of 2 days, submersing them in water when they would glow hot from overuse, with Savage's design having 37 malfunctions, and Colt's famously not failing once. The Army would adopt the 1911 under the designation of Model of 1911, with the Navy and Marines adopting it in 1913, then changing the name to Model 1911 in 1917. The United States starts rolling out the 1911, and it's already seeing action. You have the Banana Wars in Central America and the Caribbean, you have the Mexican Revolution that spilled over into the Mexican border war with the United States, and then finally, the United States officially enters World War I on April 6th, 1917. Close to 70,000 1911s were delivered to US forces before the war, and Britain ordered an estimated 13,000 of them in 455 Webley, and they all performed amazing in the trenches. They were reliable and already proved they could operate covered in mud and sand during the original pistol trials. All that the war showed was that there could be some improvements made to the design. So in 1924, the 1911A1 is made, and it brought general improvements to the ergonomics, leading to the design that everybody knows best when they think of the 1911. They improved the iron sights, they put cuts around the frame to make it easier to reach the trigger, they shortened the trigger for ease of use, they made a longer safety spur and shorter hammer spur to avoid pinching the operator, they simplified the checkering on the pistol grips, and they put a small hump on the bottom of the grip for improved ergonomics. And this is when they would finally change the name to M1911. World War II inevitably happens and wartime production starts, and the 1911 is a hot commodity with an estimated 1.9 million produced during the war. The British Commandos and British SOE are using them. Every resistance force across Europe loves it. It's a free gun to fight Germany that's easily concealable and a reliable option, and the Germans were out here using it because they were just that desperate to win round 2. And spoilers, they still lost. Take a quick trip over to the Pacific, and there's a rumor going around about a guy who got an air-to-air kill with a 1911. The war finally ends, but the Cold War starts. Every country needs to rebuild and rearm, and America happens to have a surplus of equipment for sale. So slowly over time, allied nations are getting back on their feet, they're becoming self-sufficient again, they don't need handouts from America. General Motors hopes that nobody remembers that stamped steel prototype 1911 their guide lamp division made back in '47, and in 1949, NATO officially forms. A big part of NATO is the Standardization Agreements, or STANAG, and in 1955, STANAG 4090 is put into effect to make the 9x19 Parabellum round the standard pistol cartridge for all NATO forces. It was already widely used at the time by NATO forces, with all the Stens and Sten variants made during the war and all the extra ammo left over after Germany was officially defeated, so it became the obvious choice to standardize to. America looked at this decision and said, nah, and decided to keep using the 1911 and the .45 cartridge all the way through Vietnam. After Vietnam, the United States finally acknowledged that the 1911A1 was showing its age, and with pressure from Congress, the military would finally make the switch to the 9x19 caliber. Because Congress found the 1911 wasn't actually standardized. By 1977, the Air Force's inventory was wearing out and had requested special ammunition for the Smith & Wesson Model 15 to improve its effectiveness due to malfunctions it was suffering. This is when a congressional investigation found that the United States Air Force alone had an estimated 25 different pistols in its inventory. So the Air Force started the Joint Service Small Arms Program to coordinate weapons standardization between the various United States military service branches in 1978 to fix the issue they caused. The Air Force starts the first series of trials in 1979, finding the Beretta 92S-1 to perform the best and adopt it under the designation of the 92SB. The Army then comes in and says that the Air Force did not replace the magazines, which caused poor 1911 performance and was cited as a reason to invalidate all test results. So the Air Force lets the Army do the next series of tests from 1981 to 1982 to prevent them from complaining, and they came to the conclusion of it was not possible to make an award because the submitted weapon samples substantially failed to meet the essential requirements contained in the procurement solicitation. The Department of Defense intends to re-examine its requirements for a new handgun and decides to cancel all procurements for the 92SB. This was not received well, leading to the final round of tests known as the XM9 trials from 1983 to 1984, with Beretta submitting the 92SB-F, later changing the name to the 92F, ultimately winning the contract and being designated the Beretta M9 in 1985. They did all of that to come to the same conclusion the Air Force did almost 5 years earlier. So, after almost 75 years of service, 2 world wars, and a history woven with America fighting imperialism and fascism, the 1911 ain't done yet. In 1985, the Marine Corps and the Navy would create the MUSOC program to enhance Marine Expeditionary Units to make them capable of special operations that conventional units aren't able to handle. They're not quite special forces, but they're a lot higher quality compared to the average Marine. In 1986, the Marine Corps' Precision Weapons section selected 1911A1s to gut them and refit them with aftermarket parts to make the 1911 ready for combat in the 21st century under the designation of the M45 MUSOC for reconnaissance units. One small problem: the M45 had a very short turnaround time, faster than what the Precision Weapons section could produce with how backlogged they were with other upgrade projects, so they had to look for something they could buy off the shelf. In steps the LAPD, as their SWAT team had a custom 1911 made by Kimber Manufacturing known as the Custom TLE-2, so the Marines contact Kimber to make a pistol for them, with it later being named the Interim Close Quarters Battle Pistol. The most noteworthy additions to the pistol being the Dawson Precision Rail, allowing the mounting of the Surefire Integrated Military Pistol Light and the Trinium Novak low mount sights for improved visibility in low light environments. Flash forward to 2004, and there is now a demand for 1911s amongst Special Forces groups, so the Army Marksmanship Unit starts the M1911A2 project. This project served more as a testbed to improved 1911s currently in use, and most were built to user specifications. Ultimately, there wouldn't be an Army-built 1911A2, but all the ideas would lay the foundation for improvements with current 1911s and any future variants. In 2010, the Marine Corps needed to replace their aging M45s. For a while there, they kept buying 1911s off the shelf. They tried to get some FBI TRP pistols and some Springfield Armory professional model pistols in 2005, but decided to keep soliciting parts to build additional MUSOC pistols. So in 2010, they made a new set of requirements for an off-the-shelf pistol instead of making the pistols themselves. They received 3 designs from Colt, Springfield Armory, and Carl Lippert Designs. And on July 20th, 2012, the Colt 1911 railgun won the contract and would be designated the M45A1 Close Quarter Battle Pistol and would be given to Force Recon Companies, MARSOC, and Special Reaction Teams. The M45A1 would last 4 years with MARSOC before they would switch to the Glock 19 in 2016 over logistical concerns and that every other SOCOM branch used the Glock. Some units would still use the M45 or would switch to the M9A1. Later in 2019, the Marine Corps would replace the M45A1 with the SIG M18, officially replacing the 1911, its variants, and every other service pistol, but they would still remain in service with select units, and if the news is anything to believe, I hope they kept them in their inventory. That was the history of the M1911 and its many variants, but how do most of us know the 1911? A lot of us know the 1911 as the FUD gun or God's Caliber or the starter pistol, and we probably don't even know how any of that started. The term FUD gun is a general term used for older firearms, with the word FUD coming from the Looney Tunes character Elmer Fudd, as he's always carrying around an old double-barreled shotgun when hunting Bugs Bunny. So FUD is used to describe people that have a heavy preference for older firearms and a distaste for newer ones like ARs and Glocks. God's Caliber is interesting, as you only ever hear it when talking about the 1911 and almost never any other 45. It's a little unclear how we got this title, but from what I could find, it comes from the creator of both the pistol and the caliber, John Moses Browning. Browning was a member of the Mormon Church and had unnatural skills with firearm design from the young age of 13 to the point where you would think he had undiagnosed autism that could be seen as the will of God. Probably the last and weakest thing the 1911 is known for is as the starter pistol, but hey, it gives me an excuse to talk about video games. A lot of companies would make World War II themed shooters, and they would always make you play as some American private, giving you an M1 Garand and a 1911 to back it up with. We would get a few years of World War II shooters before in 2007 we would get the influential Call of Duty Modern Warfare sending FPS games into the mainstream. After Modern Warfare, we would get Call of Duty World at War. Not as popular as Modern Warfare, as we're now back in World War II, but we get to see the war from the perspective of the Soviets on the Eastern Front and the Marines in the Pacific.
Here they come! They're everywhere!
Shit! We need to get these doors open! Don't leave me!
Then, hidden from all marketing after people completed the campaign, they were dropped into the legendary Zombies game mode, and the first weapon you are greeted with is the 1911. To top it all off, we have the same funny little PNG of a 1911 being pointed at you in almost every meme and the image set from Saving Private Ryan involving that tank. After all of this, the 1911 has cemented itself a legacy as a symbol of peace, freedom, fighting tyranny, a meme, and setting the standard for all pistols to come out after it, while still being a capable combat pistol over 115 years later. Whether you're a FUD, a historian, or someone that just likes guns, you have to appreciate the 1911 for what it stands for and what it has done for the firearms industry as a whole. And that is the history of the Colt M1911. But hey, I'm H. Consider subscribing.